What would you do if fate handed you an unexpected second chance at happiness? For one wealthy woman, a simple blind date with her daughter became the moment that changed everything. If you're touched by this story of unexpected love and second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming content that reminds us all of what truly matters in life. The black Bentley glided to a stop outside Lumiere, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. Cameras flashed as Elise Montgomery stepped out, her Louboutins clicking against the pavement. At 42, she commanded attention, not just as the CEO of Montgomery Industries with its $4.2 billion valuation, but as a woman whose elegance seemed effortless despite the weight she carried. "Mom, they're staring again," whispered 19-year-old Zoe as she emerged from the car, tugging self-consciously at her dress. Elise squeezed her daughter's hand. "Let them. We're just having dinner." What the cameras couldn't capture was the hollow feeling that had taken residence in Elise's chest 5 years ago when her husband Richard died suddenly of a heart attack. What they couldn't see was how she'd thrown herself into work afterward, building an empire while trying to fill the void he left behind. And what no one knew, not even Zoe, was that tonight wasn't just dinner. It was Elise's first blind date since becoming a widow, arranged by her well-meaning sister who insisted 5 years of grieving was enough. "Table for Montgomery," Elise told the maitre d', who nodded with practiced deference. "Of course, Ms. Montgomery. Your guest, Mr. Harrington, has already arrived." As they followed him through the restaurant, Elise felt her stomach tighten. What was she doing here? She had built a life that functioned perfectly without romance. She had Zoe. She had her company. She didn't need. "Mom, you're crushing my hand," Zoe whispered. Elise loosened her grip, forcing a smile. "Sorry, sweetheart." They approached a table where a man in an impeccably tailored suit stood waiting. James Harrington, venture capitalist, yacht owner, and according to her sister, perfect on paper. He smiled, revealing teeth so white they practically reflected the chandelier light. "Elise Montgomery," he said, taking her hand. "Even more stunning than your Forbes cover suggested." Zoe rolled her eyes behind his back, and Elise bit back a smile. This was going to be a long evening. As they settled into their seats, Elise's gaze drifted across the restaurant, and froze. At a small corner table sat a man with kind eyes and slightly rumpled clothes that suggested he didn't belong in a place where appetizers cost more than most people's weekly grocery bills. Beside him sat a girl about 12, wearing a dress that was clearly her best but still a few years out of style. The man was helping his daughter read the French menu, his patience evident even from across the room. There was something in his gentle manner that made Elise's chest tighten in a way it hadn't in years. "Don't you agree, Elise?" She snapped her attention back to James, who was midway through a story about his latest acquisition. "I'm sorry. I was saying how the market is ripe for disruption in the biotech sector." "Oh. Yes, certainly." As James launched into another monologue, Elise found her attention repeatedly drawn to the father and daughter. The girl said something that made her father throw his head back in laughter, a genuine, unguarded sound that carried across the restaurant. Several patrons turned to stare disapprovingly, but the man seemed oblivious to their judgment, completely present with his daughter. "Excuse me," Elise said suddenly, standing up. "I need to use the restroom. Zoe, would you like to join me?" In the elegant marble bathroom, Zoe leaned against the counter. "Mom, if you're not into this guy, we can just leave. He's talked about himself for 20 minutes straight." Elise reapplied her lipstick, buying time. "Did you notice the man with his daughter in the corner? The one in the blazer that's seen better days?" "Yeah, why?" "I don't know. There's something about them." Elise capped her lipstick. "The way he is with her reminds me of how your father was with you." Zoe's expression softened. "I miss him." "I know, sweetheart. Me too." Elise squeezed her daughter's hand. "Every day." When they returned to the table, James was on his phone, not bothering to look up as they sat down. "Sorry, just closing a deal," he said without genuine apology. Elise nodded politely, but her attention was drawn back to the father and daughter. The waiter was now at their table, and she could see the man's discomfort as he looked at the prices. He said something quietly to his daughter, whose face fell slightly before she nodded bravely. Without thinking, Elise signaled to their waiter. "Yes, Ms. Montgomery?" "The gentleman in the corner with his daughter, I'd like to anonymously cover their meal tonight. Whatever they order. And please tell the chef to send them his special selections." The waiter nodded discreetly. "Of course, Ms. Montgomery." "What was that about?" James asked, finally putting his phone down. "Just taking care of something," Elise replied. Throughout dinner, she watched as the father and daughter were surprised with course after course of the chef's finest creations. The girl's eyes widened with each new dish, and her father looked increasingly bewildered but delighted by his daughter's joy. James droned on about his investments, his homes, his connections. Occasionally he would ask Elise a question about Montgomery Industries, clearly fishing for business opportunities rather than getting to know her. "So, Zoe," he finally acknowledged her daughter, "planning to follow in your mother's footsteps?" "I'm studying environmental science, actually," Zoe replied. "I want to help companies like my mom's become more sustainable." James said dismissively. "Not much money in that, is there?" Elise felt a flash of anger. "Actually, our sustainability division has shown the highest growth percentage in the company for 3 consecutive quarters." James raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" "Well, I've always found that." He was interrupted by a commotion from the corner. The father had stood up, speaking animatedly to the waiter. Elise couldn't hear the words, but his body language suggested confusion and concern. "Excuse me," she said, standing abruptly. "I need to check on something." As she approached their table, she could hear the man saying, "There must be some mistake. We only ordered the soup and 1 entree to share." "Sir, as I explained, a patron has anonymously covered your meal tonight, including the chef's special selections," the waiter replied. "But I can't accept that. It's too much." "Who would?" "I would," Elise said, stepping forward. The man turned, surprise evident on his face. Up close, she could see the flecks of gray in his dark hair and the lines around his eyes that spoke of both laughter and hardship. "You?" he asked, confusion clear in his voice. "I'm Elise Montgomery." She extended her hand. "Daniel Foster," he replied, taking it hesitantly. "And this is my daughter, Emma." "Hi," Emma said shyly, looking up at Elise with wide eyes. "Are you the lady from the magazines?" Elise smiled. "Sometimes." "It's lovely to meet you, Emma." Daniel shook his head. "I appreciate the gesture, Ms. Montgomery, but we can't accept this. It's too generous. Please, call me Elise." "And why not?" "Consider it my good deed for the day." "Because we don't need charity," he said quietly, his pride evident despite his gentle tone. Elise studied him for a moment. "It's not charity, Mr. Foster. It's connection. I saw you with your daughter, and it reminded me of something I lost a long time ago." Daniel's expression softened. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Dad," Emma tugged at his sleeve. "The food is really good." A smile broke across his face as he looked at his daughter. "It is, isn't it? Perhaps you could repay me by joining us?" Elise suggested, surprising herself. "My date seems more interested in his phone than conversation, and my daughter could use someone closer to her age to talk to." Daniel hesitated, looking back at their small corner table and then at the elaborate setting where James and Zoe waited. "Please?" Emma asked, her eyes bright with excitement. "All right," he conceded with a small smile. "But I'm buying dessert." As they approached Elise's table, James looked up with undisguised annoyance. What's this? James, this is Daniel and Emma Foster. They'll be joining us for the remainder of dinner. James's expression darkened. I thought this was supposed to be a date. It was supposed to be dinner, Elise corrected smoothly. And now it's dinner with friends. The waiter quickly arranged additional place settings, and soon Emma and Zoe were deep in conversation about Emma's science project on marine ecosystems, which perfectly aligned with Zoe's environmental studies. So, Daniel, Elise said as James sulked into his wine glass, what do you do? I teach high school English, he replied. Not quite as glamorous as running a billion-dollar company. I'd argue it's more important, Elise said sincerely. You're shaping the future. Daniel smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. That's what I tell myself on days when no one has done the reading. As the evening progressed, Elise learned that Daniel had lost his wife to cancer 3 years ago. He'd moved to New York for a teaching position at a prestigious school that offered Emma a scholarship. Tonight's a special occasion, he explained. Emma won the state essay competition. The prize included a gift card to a restaurant of her choice. And you chose Lumiere? Elise asked, surprised. Emma spoke up. Mom always said she wanted to eat here someday. So when I won, Dad said we should come for her too. Elise felt something shift inside her chest, a wall beginning to crumble. By the time dessert arrived, James had made his excuses and left, clearly irritated at being sidelined. Elise barely noticed his departure. I insist on paying for dessert, Daniel said when the check came. And I insist on paying for the rest, Elise countered. How about a compromise? Daniel suggested. You can pay tonight if you let me take you to my favorite bookstore cafe sometime. The coffee is excellent, and the bill will be considerably less intimidating. Elise felt a flutter in her stomach that she hadn't experienced in years. Is that a date, Mr. Foster? If you'd like it to be, he replied, a hint of nervousness in his smile. I would, she said softly. As they left the restaurant, paparazzi again swarmed around Elise. But this time, instead of posing alone with Zoe, she found herself standing beside Daniel and Emma, forming an unexpected quartet. Mom, can Emma come over sometime? Zoe asked as they waited for their cars. Of course, Elise replied, watching as the two girls exchanged phone numbers. Daniel turned to her. Thank you for tonight. It was unexpected. The best things usually are, Elise said. As Daniel's modest sedan pulled away, Elise felt lighter than she had in years. She had come to dinner expecting to endure a blind date. Instead, she had found something she wasn't even looking for, a reminder that life could still surprise her. 6 months later, Elise sat in Daniel's classroom after hours, watching him grade papers while she reviewed quarterly reports. They had fallen into an easy rhythm, their lives gradually intertwining. Emma and Zoe had become inseparable, and family dinners, sometimes at Lumiere but more often at Daniel's cozy apartment or Elise's penthouse, had become a weekly tradition. What? Daniel asked, looking up to find Elise watching him. Nothing, she said with a smile. Just thinking about how different my life is now compared to a year ago. Daniel set down his red pen. Better or worse? Infinitely better, she replied without hesitation. That evening, as they walked through Central Park, Elise made a decision. She stopped beneath a lamppost, snow falling gently around them. Daniel, I want to do something, but I need your honest opinion. He turned to her, his breath visible in the cold air. Always. I'm thinking of starting a foundation. For single parents who've lost spouses. To help with education costs, housing, childcare, whatever they need most. Daniel's eyes softened. Elise, that's incredible. You don't think it's, I don't know, presumptuous? Using my money to help people who are struggling with something you understand intimately? No, I don't think that's presumptuous. I think it's beautiful. Elise took a deep breath. There's more. I want you to help me run it. You understand what these families need in a way I never could, despite my own loss. Richard's heart attack was sudden, but we had resources. You faced years of medical bills before losing Sarah. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership, Elise clarified. In this and, in everything else. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Elise Montgomery, are you proposing to me? She laughed, suddenly nervous. I suppose I am. Not very traditionally, I'm afraid. Good, he said, pulling her close. We've never been traditional. He kissed her then, as the snow continued to fall around them. 1 year after their chance meeting at Lumiere, Elise and Daniel stood together on the rooftop of Montgomery Tower. Behind them, a small gathering of their closest friends and family, including a beaming Zoe and Emma, watched as they exchanged vows. When Richard died, Elise said, her voice steady despite the emotion behind her words, I thought that chapter of my life was closed forever. I built walls around my heart and told myself they were for protection. What I didn't realize was that they were also keeping out the possibility of joy. She took Daniel's hands in hers. You didn't tear down those walls. You simply showed me a door I hadn't noticed before, and patiently waited while I found the courage to open it. Daniel smiled, the same genuine smile that had first caught her attention across a crowded restaurant. When Sarah was sick, she made me promise 2 things, that I would make sure Emma knew how much her mother loved her, and that I wouldn't close myself off to happiness. The first promise was easy to keep. The second seemed impossible, until I met you. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Elise felt the last piece of her heart heal. Not because Daniel had replaced what she had lost, but because he had helped her create something new, a family blended from broken pieces into something stronger and more beautiful than before. Later that evening, as they danced beneath the stars, Daniel whispered in her ear, Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't been at Lumiere that night? Elise shook her head. I think we would have found each other somehow. Some connections are just meant to be. Across the rooftop, Zoe and Emma stood together, watching their parents with matching smiles. Did you ever think we'd end up as sisters? Emma asked. Honestly? No, Zoe replied. But now I can't imagine it any other way. The Montgomery Foster Family Foundation opened its doors 1 month after the wedding. Its first initiative provided scholarships to children who had lost parents, ensuring they could attend the schools of their choice regardless of financial circumstances. Its second program offered support groups and resources for widowed parents, creating communities where they could find understanding and hope. And on the wall of the foundation's main office hung a framed receipt from Lumiere Restaurant, a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin with a simple act of kindness. Elise Montgomery had everything money could buy, but for 5 years after her husband's death, she couldn't purchase what she truly needed, healing. It took an unexpected encounter with a humble English teacher and his daughter to remind her that the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars but in connections. Their story reminds us all that second chances often come disguised as ordinary moments, and that sometimes, the most unbelievable thing we can do is simply open our hearts again after loss. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe for more content that celebrates the unexpected ways love finds us when we least expect it but need it most.